And the coriander that I've got in the polytunnel is doing really well. There's no sign of bolting here. There's lots of culinary uses of coriander. You just got to use your imagination. Or I'm sure people can get a hold of recipes where coriander can be used. We're just going to take a look at the broad beans that are planted in the small raised bed. The flowers have started to fall off now, and the plant is producing pods. In fact, these broad beans I sowed a little later than I normally would do. But we'll take a look at some broad beans that a friend has planted on her allotment plot and see how that's coming along at the moment. And you'll recall this patch of broad beans that we had a look at. It's a dwarf variety called the Sutton. And it's amazing that in the space of a few weeks, how the plant has come on. Broad beans are really good for you. It's an excellent source of protein. So you can see in a small patch of garden space, or in this case allotment, Liz has got quite a good harvest of broad beans. And talking about harvest, you said that you've had a couple of meals that you've used your broad beans in. What have you done with that?
I just shell them and boil them in salted water for just a few minutes. They don't need more than that because they're so very tender and very tasty.
Yeah.
Bit of butter on.
Just a nice simple way of using it, and you get the full flavour of the food, don't you, when you keep it simple?
You do. When I've got more of them, I'll probably make a broad bean risotto with a bit of onion and risotto rice, the broad beans and a bit of grated cheese on the top. Lovely.
That does sound tremendous, actually, and tremendous is one of my favourite words to use on the channel.
Yeah, Mr. Tremendous, are you?
Well, not so sure about that, but yeah. So broad beans, and it's been a crop that people have used for a long time, hasn't it? Mm. So
they usually grow the tall ones and let them get too tough, and then they skin each bean. Well, that's too much hard work for me.
Yeah.
I like them young and tender, and they got far more nutrients in when they're younger.
Well, like you, I've been growing broad beans for the last few years and sticking with this dwarf variety. Mm. But yeah, so that's broad beans. Have a go at growing them if you've not done so. I said we'd do a follow-up of the Joste berry, and a few weeks later you can see how they've started to develop quite well. But as expected, they're nowhere near ready. What they'll need to do is start turning a darker colour. And you'll remember I said that a Joste berry was a cross between a blackcurrant and a gooseberry. So I thought I'd just do a follow-up. And we'll come back in another few weeks' time and see how this plant's getting on. And this area is interesting to see. Liz has got cabbages, in particular cauliflower, netted over to protect it from cabbage whitefly. But if you zoom in, you can see the cauliflower head emerging. Now this is called a curd, and it'll take a short while yet, but she should have some lovely cauliflower to pick. That's maybe one for myself to think about growing in the future. Cauliflower. Now, with it being the height of rhubarb season, it was interesting for me to see what David was doing with his rhubarb. And he just explained to me that he's cut it back and he's going to be giving it a high nitrogen feed. Now we're in the second week of June, and it's a bit of an experiment for him. And what he thinks is going to happen is that he'll get another crop this year. So that's something worthwhile trialling. The feed that you're giving is a high nitrogen fertilizer, VitaFeed. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see how you get on. I mean, it's not uncommon for people to try and get 2 or 3 crops from their land. I know certainly rice farmers have been doing it for years to maximise their output. But let's see how you get on with your rhubarb with the same principle. Now these yellow flowers are actually the kale that's gone to bolt. I haven't pulled this particular plant up because I'm deliberately hoping that it's going to turn to seed, and these tiny little seed pods will contain the kale that I can then harvest and keep for future years. So I'm quite excited about that. As I say, I'm a firm believer in trying to harvest seeds and collect them and keep them from your own plants. And where possible, trying to avoid from buying from the shops.